former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company.
And I'm Wheezy, former tech exec turned podcaster and comedy writer. We're the hosts of the Horrible Decisions podcast. Through laughter and education, we work to destigmatize kinks, normalize conversations that are taboo, like sex, dating, relationships. Check us out every Monday.
That's right. Don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, the #1 app for podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. The new season of my podcast is back with more probing conversations that get at the heart of the issues that are keeping us up at night. From sex and dating during COVID to the stark reality that the gender gap is a lot wider than we thought, and the true ramifications of misinformation.
865,000 women were forced out of the workforce because we don't have access to childcare, and so women are making the difficult decision. They're choosing their children and their families.
Where do we go from here? Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. New episodes begin November 11th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
It is a Friday. We are live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we're on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. It is great to have you in on a Friday. America's changing. Slowly but surely, it is great to have you in. 1 hour from now, our Blazing 5 picks. Love favorites this week, back-to-back winning weeks. Red hot the last 2 weeks, and Joy Taylor is joining me. Joy, how are you?
I'm doing good. I had a good week.
You did have a good week. Yeah, me too.
Did not spend a lot of time in front of the television.
No.
Unless it was Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, you love it's my wife's favorite show.
I'm binging it right now.
Yeah, it's
I
fantastic.
had to choose a low anxiety binge choice for this week.
I watched half of a football game last night. That was enough.
I watched the whole thing, but yes.
Well, I saw a headline today. It's great to have you in on a Friday. A lot of choices. Thanks for choosing us. I saw this headline. Beware, NFL. Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay are only going to get stronger. Bleacher Report. Oh, stop. We didn't learn anything last night about Green Bay. They're the NFL's front runner. They're always good when it's comfortable, and all of the physical 49er players and their starting quarterback were all out. Wide receivers were wide open. They were good on time of possession, excellent on third down. Again, they're the convertible sports car of the NFL. Summer and early fall, easy breezy. Wait till it snows. I didn't learn anything about Green Bay. Nothing. They've been doing this for 2 years. The smallest dogs always bark the loudest, but you can put them right in your purse and they disappear. Pit bulls growl more than they bark. That's Pittsburgh, and that's Kansas City, and that's Seattle. Those are the kind of teams that can get physical too, but they can be pretty. Oh, the Steelers can be pretty. They can go all deep ball on you. Seattle, Russell Wilson can go pretty to DK Metcalf, and Kansas City goes without saying. But they can get into the trenches and growl and not just be loud on the porch. Let's be honest about this. There's 2 games I care about Green Bay. 2 games. I want to see them play the Philadelphia Eagles, a physical team, December 6th. And I want to see them play Tennessee in Week 16. Then we can talk. Because I didn't learn a thing. 5 days ago, they got pushed around by the Vikings. 2 times in the last month, Green Bay has been embarrassed, humiliated physically. And Packer fans are becoming Cleveland Brown fans. They get amnesia. They'll get clobbered by the Steelers, and a week later they beat Cincinnati, and everybody in Cleveland is like, this defines us. No, I just watched you get boat raced by Pittsburgh. I'm supposed to look at that game and have any definitive opinion on Green Bay? I said yesterday, I bet this game last night. I'm like, the best bet of the week will not be my Blazing 5. It was last night. I got nothing out of this. But Green Bay likes talking. They're like Brown fans. They're Brown fans with a better pedigree. They've got some titles. They got some Lombardi trophies. It's named after a Packer. But Devontae Adams, it's all rosy and we're all great this morning.
Do you think you're at the point where you can say you're the best wide receiver in the NFL?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think that's not being conceited. That's just being confident. I think obviously what I've done and what I'm going to continue to do is going to prove that to anybody who isn't on board with that. But I truly believe that.
That's okay. That's okay. But don't take last night as the reason you're the best receiver in the NFL. That one doesn't count. You may be. You're certainly in my top 5, but last night proves nothing. This has become a franchise that looks beautiful in the summer, beautiful in camp, beautiful in early fall. December 6th against the Eagles, later in the year against Tennessee. The rest of it's Jags, Carolina, Detroit, bad quarterbacks. Couldn't care less. I've seen this before. This is all on the Packers. All my cynicism is because you have delivered it. A lot of yapping on the porch. I want growling. I see that in Kansas City. I see it in Pittsburgh. I still see it in Baltimore. I see it in Seattle. I don't see it in Green Bay. All right, I'll tell you the game that I'm really jacked up to watch this weekend. Of course I am. It's Tua against Kyler Murray, Miami against Arizona. And for years and years I've talked about this. If you go look at where most quarterbacks in the NFL played college football, it's remarkable how many of the great ones did not play at college football powers. Aaron Rodgers played at Cal, Phillip Rivers, North Carolina State, Russell Wilson, North Carolina State to Wisconsin. I mean, Brady was fighting for a starting job at Michigan. He couldn't even become a full-time starter. There are very few Deshaun Watsons from Clemson. I mean, where did Patrick Mahomes go? I mean, his coach got fired. He couldn't even win with Patrick Mahomes. And the reason being is because the NFL is all about discomfort. And when you're a college quarterback at a national power like an Oklahoma or a Clemson, Ohio State, it's all about comfortable. You rarely get hit. So last week, Tua, who was comfortable in college at Alabama, great running game, great coach, great stars, NFL guys on the offensive line, he was comfortable against the Rams. He had 2 weeks to prepare. Now he gets just one against Arizona. He was home against the Rams. Now he's road against Arizona. He got a defensive touchdown, couple of special teams touchdowns. He won't get those against Arizona. Miami's starting running back is out. Myles Gaskin. Now is a test on Tua. Last week in his college career has all been about comfort. One of the reasons I really like Kyler Murray is he has to keep burrowing through discomfort. Kyler Murray had to transfer in college. Started at once, had to transfer. Nobody babied him. Oh, okay. Then he goes to the NFL. His NFL coach has never coached in the NFL. Oh boy, we're learning on the job same time. Then he goes to a brutal division. His defense can't stop anybody his rookie year. And there's massive pressure on him. He doesn't have Ryan Fitzpatrick to start the... No, they got rid of the quarterback so that he had to come in and play immediately. And they gave him the entire playbook. Kid, we can't stop a nosebleed. Score 30 a game. Kyler Murray, time and time again, has been put in uncomfortable situations in his life. At Texas A&M, rookie NFL coach, toughest division in football, doesn't have the defense to save him, has to start game one, and all he has done every single time is just get better and better and better. And I think this is one of my favorite picks in a long time. I love Arizona this week. I am not, as I saw it before Kyler came to the NFL, I was very cynical. He looked tiny to me. I bought in by the second game in the pros. Tua, I was totally for, but I watch his first week and I watch his college experience and I think, God, this guy's life's just comfort. It is just all. He played at a high school in Honolulu that was a powerhouse. Wins 11 games every year. Alabama wins 11 games every year. Last week got all sorts of help from the defense, special teams, only 8 first downs. This is really Tua's first start. 1 week on the road, now some expectations, and here's something to think about that I think is really interesting. Miami has said this is not an experiment, although we know it kind of is because they have Houston's pick. But the Miami coaches now, yes, they want to win games, but nobody's going to get fired on this Miami staff if Tua loses and they don't make the playoffs. Nobody's getting fired here. Brian Flores has been exceptional. For the first time in years, I really like everything about a coaching staff and their personnel and where they're going. They have a bad O-line. That'll get better in the next 2 years, as it should. But it'll be interesting to watch here, because at some point, Brian Flores knows what I just said is right. You can't coddle anymore. This kid was power high school, power college, last week, 8 first downs, no tough throws. At some point, it's going to be interesting to see if the Miami coaching staff says, and it may only be once or twice a game, but situationally, let's throw the ball here. Let's see if he can do it. Because I think the Miami staff, knowing what they have to compete against in the NFL, which is the Burrows and the Herberts and the Lamars and by the way, the good quarterbacks, the Big Bens and the Bradys are playing longer. The Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers could play for another 8 years, and the young guys are getting better. So you cannot be average at quarterback, and you got to find out if you're any good. So watch the Miami staff this weekend. I think they're going to test Tua. He may pass with flying colors, but they're going to put him in spots to fail, because that's what Arizona's been doing for a year and a half with Kyler Murray, and the reason he's a star is because he has passed, not every time, he's had bad games and bad halves, but passed with flying colors. Tua on the road against Arizona. I love the Cardinals this week, blazing 5 top of next hour. So 2 old quarterbacks meet, Drew Brees and Tom Brady. But why is one playing old and one isn't? It's not just weapons. That is coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. The new season of my podcast is back with more probing conversations that get at the heart of the issues that are keeping us up at night. From sex and dating during COVID to the stark reality that the gender gap is a lot wider than we thought, and the true ramifications of misinformation.
865,000 women were forced out of the workforce because we don't have access to childcare, and so women are making the difficult decision. They're choosing their children and their families.
Where do we go from here? Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. New episodes begin November 11th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey there, it's Mango, host of Part-Time Genius, co-founder of Mental Floss, and like many of you, I'm one of the 21 million people that have picked up gardening in the past 6 months. That's why I'm hosting the brand new podcast, Humans Growing Stuff, brought to you by iHeartMedia and your friends at Miracle Grow. Join me on a green adventure as we talk with experts, friends, and surprise guests, and hear what gardening means to them. Listen to Humans Growing Stuff on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Time to change your wireless provider. Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, and 2 gigs of data, $20 a month. Grab your phone, dial pound 250 and say Colin Coward. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the quarterbacks this week, Brees against Brady. And we should. They're both old, right? But one doesn't look quite as old, Tom Brady. I want you to, for a second, think about this. One of the things I was told by somebody, really smart person years ago, those with power don't need to use it, because everybody understands it. People in power don't have to brag about the power they have. It's unspoken. The Saints and the Patriots have been really great franchises for most of the last decade, certainly New England. They both have Hall of Fame coaches, Belichick and Sean Payton. But Belichick's won more Super Bowls, so he has more power. And as he has accumulated more power, he has pushed away people in the personnel department. Bill now controls the draft. And the Patriot drafts have been poor for the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. The more Super Bowls he wins, the more power Belichick has. Sean Payton is also a Hall of Fame coach. And maybe if he had 4 Super Bowls, he would get a call the shots. But he has Mickey Loomis, one of the best GMs in football. And if Tom Brady had Mickey Loomis as his general manager in New England and would have had Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas drafted, Tom Brady would have never left New England. And Jared Cook and Emmanuel Sanders in free agency acquired. He would be in New England. Tom was never tight with Belichick. 20 years they never went to dinner. That's fact. That wasn't why he left. He left because Belichick got more power, wouldn't let Tom have a say, and as he got more power, didn't let his scouts help him in the draft. Tom Brady would be in New England. He and Belichick were never tight. So when people called Brady a shot fighter, my argument was, why are we not looking at Belichick? He made the classic mistake. I've seen Bobby Knight make this mistake. I've seen old coaches who get rich and powerful. Greg Popovich with Kawhi Leonard. When you get powerful in this sport, often you want to flex and push away dissenting opinions. Belichick, it's a hole in his game. He is becoming a little bit like that classic old dominating college football coach who doesn't age well. They're bad offensively. They have no weapons. Brady just chose a place where a younger GM and a veteran head coach work hand in hand. So when you watch this weekend, and this is why Brady is better right now than Breeze. Breeze is struggling with great weapons. Brady now is very good with great weapons. But we've spent so much time looking at Brady and Drew Brees, we haven't looked at these two Hall of Fame coaches. One has been left to his own worst devices and tendencies, power. The other, Sean Payton, is held in check by a great general manager. Tom Brady would never have left if Mickey Loomis was in New England and said to Bill occasionally, I got it. This is what I do. You're a great coach, I'm a great GM. Belichick's trying to be a great coach and a great GM. There's never been an example where it works. There's been great GMs that couldn't coach and great coaches that didn't GM, but we've given Belichick this pass and he's just a magician. He's terrible. Offensive skill people, he hasn't had a Pro Bowler since Gronk. So when you look this weekend, finally Brady has weapons. And of course Breeze does. He's had them for years. They've even built their offensive line over in New Orleans, and that's got two Pro Bowlers on it. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, it feels like the NBA season just finished. It did, and it's about to get started again very soon.
8 weeks later.
The NBA players' reps voted in support of the league's plan for the next season. The Players Association released a statement yesterday saying that they have approved the December 22nd start date with a 72-game schedule. You know, in times of crisis, sometimes there's opportunity.
Yeah.
And I personally love this.
So do I. I actually would like it more. I just think we're in a world where it's unfair to the 4 final teams and really an advantage to be a non-bubble team, but that's life.
Life's not fair. There are still details that need to be negotiated, but the NBA is on track to begin again in just a few weeks. The NBA draft is scheduled for November 18th, so that's in just a few weeks as well. Obviously not the same buzz that we usually have for the NBA draft, but it is going to change a few things. There's a couple big names in there. Anthony Edwards, obviously LaMelo Ball. So the NBA Finals finished October 11th. With the December 22nd start date, to your point, the Lakers and Heat will only have 72 days off for 10 weeks. The Nuggets and Celtics finished on September 26th and 27th, respectively, so they'll have 12 weeks off. Then the 6 teams that left the bubble before the playoffs would have 18 weeks, and then obviously there were also 8 teams who never went to the bubble, and they wouldn't have played a game in 9 months, which includes the Golden State Warriors, who will be coming back healthy. So they have been able to hold mini camps, but to your point, the teams that lasted the longest in the bubble are at a slight disadvantage.
Yes.
They haven't had a lot of time off. They've also, I'm sure, had to mentally reset from being away from their families and their lives for the time that they were in the bubble for those 3 months. But we have to make adjustments, and there's a majority that the NBA has to be concerned about as well here, not just the Lakers.
Right.
Nuggets and
Well,
Celtics.
the good news for the Lakers, Vogel's a veteran coach. Most of the players are veterans, so they do. You can have a much lighter practice schedule because these guys understand. I mean, you don't have to tell Rondo and LeBron and AD how to play.
Right.
So it's not a young team trying to build chemistry. What we were shocked about last year with the Lakers, how good the chemistry was in the first week. So the good news is you got a title, you got chemistry. I would go through a really, really light first month of camp. I'd play LeBron 20 minutes, not 30, and you're going to lose some games, but you know, the good news is most of it now, Miami's different where they're young and they probably need to get in camp, but I think the NBA should have started by Christmas. And
Yes.
I've always been a 68 to a 72 game guy, so I love it.
I love the adjustments, and yeah, I don't think anyone needs to be overreactive to if you don't see a lot of LeBron or AD at the beginning of the season. If Jimmy Butler's not out there a lot at the beginning of the season, that's fine. I do think that we're going to start to get away from the load management with the rest of the league, because that obviously did not work out well for the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, but for the teams that were there the longest, you have to just be a little patient. So the Titans looked like one of the best teams in the league a few weeks ago, starting the season 5-0, but they've dropped their last two to the Steelers and a stinker to the Bengals, and Ryan Tannehill is anxious to turn those things around.
Everyone's frustrated, just not going out and performing the way we expect to. It's frustrating, plain and simple. But at the end of the day, we have no one to look to but ourselves. We have a lot to clean up, and excited for the opportunity this week to get back to work, clean those things up, and go play against a really good team on Sunday.
I thought about putting this in the Blazing Five. There's a theory in the NFL that after you play the Steelers, they are so physical that the next week you're banged up and flat. You come down from playing the Steelers, and they looked awful against Cincinnati, and they'll rebound this week. But if you watched that game last week, it was not competitive 10 minutes in. So Tennessee was just, and I think that's what it is. It's the post. They've said this about the Patriots, by the way. Remember when the Patriots were in the dynasty? The week after you played New England, teams had a blueprint on how to beat you, because New England and Belichick would say, here's how to beat this team. The next coaching staff would go, oh, Belichick gave us the blueprint to beat the Jets or the Dolphins. So there's a little bit of that rebound theory.
They lost to the Steelers close, 27-24, but to your point, 31-20 to the Bengals last week is not what you expect to see from the Titans. I don't know, though. The Bears are one of those teams that, similar to the Rams, you just really don't know what they are week to week. Their Titans are favored by 6.5, according to Fox Bet. They are at home.
Yeah.
But this is a very, very big game for Tennessee. You don't want to lose 3 in a row.
Yeah, that's the right number. I think Titans will win, and they'll win by a couple field goals. I think the number is right.
So Richard Sherman has gone up against Tom Brady a few times in his career, and he spoke with Chris Collinsworth about one important thing that separates Brady from other quarterbacks.
He's much more intense throughout the play than most quarterbacks. It's almost like a franticness about his play sometimes, where it's like, I need to get this ball out. I know where it's going. It's almost like the game is moving so slow in his mind that it's like his mind's fast forwarded to the spot where the guy should be, the moment the ball should be out, and the guy isn't there yet, and he has to wait for him.
I mean, that makes sense. When you do something for that long, that many times, it becomes a second nature to you.
Yes.
It's more of the physical now than it is with Brady mentally. And he's right. Like, he knows where the receiver is supposed to be. He knows exactly where he wants to go with the ball.
Yeah.
So he's so far ahead of everyone that he's, like, holding it like, okay, get
well,
get to where you need
if you've
to be.
ever been in a kitchen with a chef, a long tenured chef, and there's utter chaos in a kitchen. I mean, it's like intimidating. You got and you watch a great chef. He can plate everything at the exact same time. I can't do eggs, toast, and at the same time. They don't match up.
Right.
But if you watch a great chef, he's literally, he can anticipate everything, the timing, and I think that's Brady. He is Wayne Gretzky, they said at the end, he was a play ahead.
Yes.
He was a pass ahead of the sport, and I think that's where Brady is.
Yeah, it's similar to LeBron. Like, LeBron knows the game so well that that's why he gets so frustrated with young players, and Brady does too, because they know it so well. They're like, why don't you understand what I'm saying to you? Like, this is so simple, but when you've been doing it 20 years, it's it starts to slow down for you a little bit.
Good stuff. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
So, by the way, I made dance on the show Monday. What? What did Colin say? So, Drew Lock, I went out this week. And I've said this, I like my quarterbacks to be quarterbackial. I like my presidents to be presidential. I'm not into this high, lot of attention and I'm not into that stuff. So, Drew Lock turned me off this week with all the dancing. And I said I was out on Jameis Winston, I was out on Johnny Manziel, I was out on Baker, and I knew Cam would be semi-successful, but I was not a big fan. Too silly, too cool. I like my guys to be even temperament. And Drew Lock this past week, I saw him get silly, and I said this earlier in the week. We have a new cool guy. I was right on Manziel, I was right on Baker, I was right on Cam, I was right on Jameis Winston. Too silly, showboat, too cool. I was right. It's 4 for 4. Bring your argument on. Here's number 5. I'm not into Drew Lock. Danson. Win more games, Cub Scout. Win more games. Okay. So Drew Lock has a sense of humor. I like that. Drew Lock apparently heard about that and responded.
I definitely got it sent to me. And truthfully, I feel like the person, if not, other people, there might have been more than one, but that person just might not be able to dance as well as me. I would be sour that way too. We'll see. Hopefully, my dance moves get better in the public eye, because I promise they're probably not going to stop.
Okay, he's got a sense of humor like that. Okay, so here's my thing. All right, so a little dancey. It's not my cup of. I like my Russell Wilson, my Andrew Luck, my Brady, my Breeze. I like a certain. Not into this at all. So one of the reasons I do not like dance guy, showboat guy, Superman guy, is because that tells me you're not an even temperament guy. Everybody can have a great game. I want to see great stretches. That's been my knock on Cam. Great week, bad game. Great year, bad year. Great half, bad half. Baker Mayfield's had great moments, followed by bad moments. So this is my promise to Drew Lock. You were great last week late. So prove to me that it didn't go to your head, and I'm not even going to ask much. All I'm going to ask you to do this week is beat crappy Atlanta. Atlanta's 2-6. They've won 2 of their last 11 at home. Their defense is terrible. Because what I worry about Jameis and Johnny and Baker is often, they can dance and they're cool, but they go way up and it's followed by way down. The guys that stay neutral, I get kind of the same thing. It's one of the things I like about Dak. So all I'm asking now, just go beat Atlanta. Just go beat Atlanta. And if you beat Atlanta, crappy Atlanta. I'm not asking you to beat the Titans in Tennessee or the Steelers. I'm not asking you to beat Russell Wilson. I'm not asking you to go to Lambeau. Beat Atlanta. And I'll make a bet. If you beat Atlanta, dancing's allowed for the rest of the season, no criticism.
I thought you were about to say you were going to dance on the show.
And I will dance a little on Monday if you win. Little. But if you lose to Atlanta, I'm coming after you. And it's not, you're going to get, your buddy's going to be sending this for weeks. That's all I'm saying. So I'm not asking much. Because I think this week you're going to dovetail. I think you're going to go, you're getting real high and you'd so that's all bet. Throwing it. All I'm asking, beat Atlanta. Doug Gottlieb, the Duggar, is now joining us live, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best turnout on the Friday. Speaking of young quarterbacks, so everybody knows I had an epiphany a couple weeks ago. I looked at Tua, blah, blah, blah. I liked him all the time, and I said, listen, sometimes your epiphanies happen after the draft. And I said, he didn't have size, he didn't have a wiggle. I got to see special. So I watched the Rams game, and I'm like, I just don't see it. And so you watched the Rams game. What did you see?
It just wasn't an it play, or wasn't like, you and I have played golf before, of course. If it's ADD or I'm not sure, could make it through 18. But when you and I play golf, we're not great. But there's that one shot that keeps you coming back. When you and I play tennis, that is really not great. But there's that one rally or one serve that you have, right? Like everybody has that. And when you watch young guys that are prospects just coming into the league, oftentimes they're not consistent. They're not great. But there's a one moment where you're like, okay. That moment wasn't there Sunday. I think that was the kind of most alarming, right? I understand that the questions about Tua for the most part were, would he be healthy? Could he remain healthy? Because every time he got hurt in college, he was trying to run away from a college defender, and NFL defenders are faster, bigger, faster, stronger, etc. But I'm not saying he can't be fine, but in comparison to the first time we saw Burrow, the first time we saw Herbert, both made wow plays. By the way, both lost, and he won. But I think if you watch that tape, you're like, show me a reason to believe long term, and that reason is not yet apparent.
So I watched the Niners last night, and don't blame anybody. I still think they have a good GM and a good owner and a great coach and all that stuff. But I do think when you're in a division with Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray and Jared Goff and McVay, you not only have to be better than average, you have to be healthy. He now gets hurt a lot, and it's just what it is. So I don't think this is crazy. I look at New England's quarterback issue, and I look at 49ers, and I'm like, Garoppolo's going back there, right? Like, is that a hot take, or is that there's something there, right?
No, there's something there. I mean, I hypothesized through this out like a week and a half ago. Like, all right, I understand Matt Ryan makes a bunch of money, but he may be looking for a short-term home. Obviously, he was the MVP under Kyle Shanahan. Does that make success, or is it a Sam Darnold? I think the one thing though that we have to kind of catch our breath is if you're gonna get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, no matter what his warts are and his inability to not make the big error or to stay healthy. All of that said, you better know you got somebody who has played in this league, because when healthy, that's a great roster. I mean, really the story this year in the NFL is who's healthy, who's not healthy.
Right, it is.
I mean, just you can't. None of us believe that Kyle Shanahan's a bad coach. They're a bad team last night because they couldn't compete because the players they're putting on the field. Same thing with Bill Belichick. They had 8 guys opt out, and of course they weren't a super talented team, and they lose Brady. What did we expect? Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if that coaching staff fits long term, but there's no way of knowing when you're missing 4 offensive linemen in your quarterback. So that's the first thing. But in terms of Garoppolo, there's been something there. There's been an obvious frustration. And it was Blake Bortles-like in the NFC Championship game, right, where they just handed the ball off, or in the Super Bowl, where they didn't allow him to throw the football and really believe that he could lead him down the field at the end of the first half when they had a full boat of timeouts. So there's been something brewing there, and it does make sense. You always go back to a place where somebody believes in you, and that place may be New England. But it's a lot easier said because we had so much quarterback movement this offseason. Normally, guys fight it out to the bitter end, and normally an injury and all of a sudden the team falls apart usually helps solidify that quarterback. So let's see. It's not a crazy hot take. It's reasonable, but the actual execution of it doesn't happen that often in the NFL.
So you were a great college basketball player, and basketball, they always say, defense is a want. If James Harden wanted to be a defender, he could be. Klay Thompson wants to be, right? And so it's the same in defense in the NFL. Green Bay's like a really good basketball player where offense comes easy. They're just not sure they want to play defense. They're not a physical team. It's not who they are. In your basketball career, you probably played with great guys, and you're like, oh, man, if they took half that effort on the defensive end. And I'm not saying their personnel is perfect in Green Bay, but I watched last night, and I'm like, I didn't get anything out of this. These are the games that are always great. Like, what do I make of Green Bay today after Minnesota than this?
Well, everybody needs a get-right game, right? I mean, everybody needs a game in which you start to feel confident. And even though, and this is a crazy stat, there wasn't a player on the Niners' active roster that played against the Packers last year in the NFC Championship game. So, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to tell. They beat up on the Niners JV, no question. But we could also be honest and say, like, look, Minnesota came in last Sunday and kicked their tail, right, with the exact same kind of game plan, the exact same blocking schemes. So the takeaway is, like, it's still a work in progress defensively, but also this is the way the team was constructed. Get a lead early, and then they have a very good pass rush.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily designed to stop, that run game. What did I learn? I mean, if Devontae Adams isn't a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, I'm not sure who is. Aaron Rodgers, when he gets time, is still a magician. And when they get a lead, that's how they're designed. Do I know if they can stop a legitimate NFL team that likes to run the football? I have no idea because, again, the Niners are just crushed by injuries.
By the way, Bucks, Breeze, Saints, Bucks, Brady, Saints, Breeze, who do you like and why?
Well, look, I don't know if you heard this, but Breeze has a shoulder issue, and I do wonder if this is not a great opportunity to let's see what Jameis has against his old team. I'm with you. I think Breeze is a shot fighter. I think the arm is done. I thought last Sunday in Chicago, I know they won the game, but it's a bit of an indictment. And if they're not, I don't think they're going to be able to play all their games at home in the playoffs. And remember, the last 2 years they've lost at home, and he hasn't been great. Of course, the Dome, he's a much better quarterback. So is he going to go on the road and win in Seattle? Is he going to go on the road and win in Green Bay? Or maybe even have to play on the road in Philadelphia, right, if they win the division? The answer is it doesn't look likely. On the other hand, they are supposed to get Michael Thomas back, and whatever his personal issues are, he's an incredible wide receiver, and he's covered up some of the flaws for Drew Brees in the past. So who do I like? I like the Buccaneers. They have a very good defense, especially in the front, and obviously they're starting to come together offensively. I still think that that I'd like to see Jameis. Like, let's see what he's got, especially considering the weakness to the Tampa Bay defense is in the back end, and the guy who can make those throws is Jameis Winston. We just haven't seen him yet for the Saints.
That's interesting. That would be interesting to watch, actually.
I mean, look, we saw this with we saw this with the Broncos, right? And Peyton Manning, I don't know if he was hurt or if he was injured or if he was just old, but remember Brock Osweiler kind of carried them late in that regular season, and then they benched him to bring in Peyton for the playoffs. I don't think it's unreasonable here if you're the Saints and you say, like, Breeze has got a shoulder issue. Let's sit him down for a week or two. Let's see what else we got. Again, do I think it's going to happen? No, but I don't think it's crazy, especially considering it's the Buccaneers. Jameis threw for 5,000 yards last year in the NFL.
Yeah.
And there is some precedence with it, not just with Breeze getting hurt last year, but when Peyton Manning got hurt his last year with the Broncos.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think they would make the game more interesting. That's weird to say.
Yeah.
I think it would actually make the game. I would like to see Jameis play. Production's not his issue. Bad picks are his issue.
Why don't you like Dan? What is your thing with dancing? Like, I'm not convinced Drew Lock is the long-term starter for the team.
I was out on
what's your thing? Is it because you dance like the president?
No.
You do the white man's overbite?
No. It's Baker.
I mean, Joy should be offended by this. She does Dance Party Friday every Friday on Instagram, and here you are saying that dance. You're like, what is it, like Footloose?
No,
we can't dance inside city limits.
Presidents to be presidential, quarterbacks to be quarterbackial. You can, if you're great, I'll give you passes. Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, so Aaron Rodgers does the discount.
No, he's great.
Right, that's bad.
He's great. Magic Johnson could do anything in his prime. He's great. When you're struggling to be a franchise quarterback, scale it back a little.
Okay, can I give you the real? And Joy can tell me if I'm totally wrong here, right?
All right.
This ain't about me and you. It ain't about the fans. Okay.
Yeah.
Drew Lock's got a little swag, and that swag works in the locker room. Like, okay, this young guy, he's got a little something. Like, it has nothing to do. This is like when old guy gets on radio or TV and says, like, I don't like those uniforms the college kids are wearing, right? Well, hey, guess what, Gramps? It's not for you. It's designed for the high school kids that want to play for Oregon, that want to play for, pick whatever, right? It's the same thing. The dancing is not for you. It's not for me. It's not for the fans. It's for those fellas that block for him. They got to believe in him, by him. You got to feel like you're one of them. And I think Drew's got a little hitch in his giddy up. And if you can do it, do it. And if not, I wouldn't. You sound like the guy complaining about the party being too loud because he didn't get invited to the party.
I am 4 for 4. Manziel, Cam, Jameis, Baker. I'm 4 for 4. I don't like it. It is my thing, but prove me wrong. He's an underdog to Atlanta, so somebody doesn't buy it.
Listen. I'm not disputing that I'm not convinced that Drew Lock is a long-term solution at quarterback.
Right.
But I think these two things are separate and distinct. Because at the end of the day, aren't you supposed to have a little bit of fun, right? Like,
really.
Do you know how lucky they were to pull out that game? They were on the Chargers chargered, right? That's basically what happened. They found a way to lose a game that they were completely and totally dominant in. Yeah. He steals a win at home. Yeah. You want to do a little dance? Do a little dance, dude. Feel good for yourself.
Everybody makes fun of old guys, but we own everything. So I mean, we're doing something. We're doing something.
Wow.
Well, wow. I'm just being honest here. Everybody rips old guys. I gotta go. Everybody crushes old guys. Old guys.
Dance Party Friday, Colin. Get on board. Dance Party Friday.
All I want is Drew Lock. Go beat Atlanta. Horrible Atlanta. Can't even win at home Atlanta. If you can beat Atlanta, I'll dance Monday.
I'm so excited to see this dance.
Yeah,
you need to do it for all of us.
I'm 4 for 4 on this stuff. I'm 4 for 4.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna ask a question. Could you give me an answer? Could you give me an answer? Because I got a question. No conspiracy theories. I want a grown-up answer. That's next, The Herd.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I'm Mandy B., former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company.
I'm Wheezy, former tech exec, now podcaster, comedy writer, and I make up half of the Horrible Decisions podcast. We combine comedy, raunchiness, all in effort to destigmatize kinks and normalize conversations that are normally taboo, like sex, dating, and relationships. Make sure you tune in this Monday so you can hear conversations like these.
He sets up the phone, he bends over in the... Do y'all want to see it?
No.
We have never suggested cheating, bro. So I'm not going to tell her to cheat on this man. Otherwise, it's great.
What is you just...
doctor.
Are you serious?
I'm just asking. I don't want no beef on horrible decisions. Maybe that was a horrible decision to ask that question.
Wait. Join us every Monday on the iHeart app, the #1 place for podcasts. And don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Cody Ko here. You may know me from Vine, YouTube, or as the co-host of the Tiny Meat Gang podcast. But my brand new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, presented by Trojan Brand Condoms, is out right now. Here's a little preview from my chat with Tim Dillon. What do you seek out in a partner?
I want someone impressed that I'm on this show.
Yeah.
You did a podcast with Cody Ko. That's big. He's got 1 trillion gajillion followers on Ding Dong.
On TikTok.
Whatever it is.
On TikTok.
Zip Zop or whatever the kids are on.
My advice to you right now, go listen to my new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
RecTech, more than a grill, it's a lifestyle. Smart grill technology built by grillers for grillers. RecTech with a Q.com, RECTEQ, blazing 5 top of the hour. Good picks this week, a lot of favorites. So I'm going to ask you a question. Why doesn't Notre Dame coach Brian Kelly ever get looks in the NFL? And he is interested. I know that as a fact. His agent is called around the NFL. Why doesn't he get looks? Matt Campbell was 8-5 at Iowa State, and everybody got a flutter. Oh, Matt Campbell, we got to put him in the NFL. Because he went 8-5 at Iowa State. Brian Kelly's won everywhere, every level. He's still in his 50s. I don't get it. They have a chance to beat Clemson this week at a school, Notre Dame, that's an academic powerhouse. Cold weather, tiny town, private. And he competes against the big boys. He's not as good as Clemson or Alabama or Ohio State. He shouldn't be. A lot more restrictions there, harder to recruit there. But I don't get it. Greg Schiano had a couple of good years at Rutgers, head coaching job. Chip Kelly was really good for a while at Oregon in the soft Pac-12. He got 2 head coaching jobs. Brian Kelly can't get a sniff, and I know he's been interested. First of all, when Pete Carroll left USC and went to the NFL, it was a huge advantage for about 3 years because Pete knew all the college players. He'd recruited them, he'd played with them, he'd played against them, and Seattle, for the first 3 years Pete came to the NFL, aced the draft. They were finding great players in the 5th, the 6th round. Brian Kelly would have the same advantage. He knows all those Florida high school guys that are now in the SEC, trying to get them. He has many NFL guys. He's still in his 50s. He's great with personnel, obviously. Notre Dame, hard place to get into, has not had this many good football players since Lou Holtz. You go watch the draft now. There's very good Notre Dame players in the NFL. His offensive lines are excellent. His receivers, his backs, the linebackers. I don't get it. I do not get it. It's guys that don't even look the part. Freddie Kitchens got a head coaching job. He didn't even look the part. Jim Tom Sula. Did you watch his first press conference with the 49ers? It was humiliating. Guys that are maybe good coordinators, Steve Wilkes in Arizona. He was there for a year. They're like, ooh, big mistake. Why aren't people considering Brian Kelly? He reminds me a lot of Tom Coughlin. A little grumpy, a little edgy, up in Boston College, real smart. And by the way, Brian Kelly's also been at Notre Dame, so he's good with the media. Think about this. Cliff Kingsbury had Patrick Mahomes and couldn't win in college. He could not win in the Big 12 where tackling's illegal. Cliff Kingsbury comes to the NFL. It's not like he's 70. He's in his 50s, late 50s. Mark Trestman was a Canadian Football League coach, and people are like, oh, he's a wizard. It's the CFL. You get 12 men. You get 7 receivers. They have a 45-yard end zone. You're at the 2-yard line. You can run a post pattern. It's the CFL. They don't even run the football. Of course his offensive numbers were great. He goes to the NFL, zippo. I can't figure it out. Cliff Kingsbury couldn't win in the Big 12 with Patrick Mahomes. He had a sub-500 record in the cruddy Big 12. Chip Kelly gets 2 gigs. Schiano, Trestman. I think Notre Dame's going to give him everything they have this weekend. And Brian Kelly has won everywhere. Everywhere he's been. Directional schools, small schools, Notre Dame. He's good with the media, super smart, develops players. He takes a lot of academic 3-star guys and they end up playing on Sundays. I think he's really, really good. Now, Clemson's got better personnel. They're missing a couple starters plus Trevor Lawrence, so I think it's a very competitive football game. If the weather weather was cold and crappy, I would like Notre Dame more. But it's I think Joy said it's going to be 65-70, so Clemson probably prevails. But Fox Bet's got it at like 4.5-point spread. That tells you I think it's going to be an even football game. So I just can't figure it out. Matt Campbell went 8-5 at Iowa State, and everybody freaked out. We got a new NFL coach. Brian Kelly's won for 25 years. I mean, he's built an incredible staff at Notre Dame. I don't get. He's winning more than Harbaugh. He's more competitive in big games than Harbaugh, and he'd get an NFL job if he wanted it. If you're not ready to give up, check it out, mdriveformen.com, mdriveformen.com. Eat right, work out, still need a supplement. Walgreens, Rite Aid, Vitamin Shop all have it. Hour 2 on a Friday, Blazing 5 next.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and NBC News senior business correspondent, and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. Times were complicated a year ago, but now, complicated doesn't seem to cover it. Sometimes it feels like we're being asked to play a game where the rules have changed, but we don't know what those new rules are, so I want to try and figure it out together. The new season of my podcast, Modern Rules, is back with more probing conversations because how else can we meet the demands of these crazy times unless we're at the very least trying to get smarter? From sex and dating during COVID to the dangers of misinformation campaigns. We're talking about all of it.
And so what I see coming is, however this ends, that next phase will be a really exciting beginning for sex and relationships. I think it's going to lead to an actual, like a post-COVID sexual revolution.
Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. New episodes begin November 11th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Cody Ko here. You may know me from Vine, YouTube, or as the co-host of the Tiny Meat Gang podcast. But my brand new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, presented by Trojan Brand Condoms, is out right now. Here's a little preview from my chat with Tim Dillon. What do you seek out in a partner?
I want someone impressed that I'm on this show.
Yeah.
You did a podcast with Cody Ko. That's big. He's got a trillion, gajillion followers on Ding Dong.
On TikTok.
You know, whatever it is.
On Ding Dong.
Zip Zop or whatever the kids are on.
My advice to you right now, go listen to my new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Do flowers have best friends? I don't know. Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go. It's a Friday, hour 2. We're live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. Nice to have you in. We're back-to-back Blazing 5 weeks, 4-1 last week. And even our bonus pick on our podcast on Saturdays was right. And the week before, we had a winning week. We were 3-2. Should have been 4-1. Ravens crushed us, even though we had the right side on that. So we're very, very hot right now. I like favorites this week. Joy Taylor is joining me. Eric Mangini coming up in 15 minutes. Joy, how are you?
Doing good. Hanging in there. It's been a long week for everyone.
It has. A lot of stress.
Yep. We've got a nice weekend of football coming up. Some really big college games.
Notre Dame, Clemson. Yes. Arizona State, USC. What do we got tonight? Yeah. What's going on tonight?
BYU, Boise State tonight. And Miami plays tonight.
BYU's got...
Yeah, Miami plays tonight.
BYU has a quarterback that may go in the first round. Zach Wilson. May go, not saying, but if you want to watch that game tonight, BYU's got a quarterback that's very interesting.
And great game Sunday.
It's on FS1, so he's going to get drafted probably second round, maybe late first. So watch that. All right, here we go. We've been hot lately. Blazing 5. All of our odds are provided, as always, by Fox Bet. And here we go.
That's a hot one. Let's blaze it up. Fire it up. It's Colin's Blazing 5. Seahawks at Bills.
I'm going to take Seattle -3 at Buffalo. Don't worry about the East Coast. Seattle's on a 10-game winning streak in the Eastern time zone. That's the best place they play. I can't figure it out, but it is. Here's what we're talking about. Russell Wilson, best player on the planet against Josh Allen. Josh Allen has not played well for a couple of weeks. 4 touchdown passes, 5 turnovers in the last 4 games for Josh Allen. If you look at his quarterback rating in the last 4 games, it's been 79. Josh is not playing particularly well right now, and their defense is not good enough to beat good teams. They've beaten one good team all year, the Raiders. Rams doesn't count. They got an officiating break in one of the last calls of the game. They're the 3rd team in NFL history to be 6-2 and have negative point differential. A little bit of fool's gold here. They're getting worse. I like Seattle to win and cover 33-26.
Ravens at Colts.
Baltimore minus 2.5. I'm going to take the Ravens. They have a huge advantage of quarterback. When you have Lamar Jackson, you can roll the pocket, quarterback draws, throw it downfield. Come on, last couple of years, Lamar's been very good on the road. Let's not freak out. They had 460 total yards against the Steelers. He made mistakes. He has regressed. But you can do things with Lamar Jackson you can't do with Phillip Rivers, and that's the NFL in 2020. And I got questions about the Colts. I think they have a low ceiling. Their 5 wins are against the Vikings, Jets, Bears, Bengals, and Lions. They're a little hot and cold to me. I don't trust them. Their defense feels like it is very reliant on Darius Leonard. I like the Ravens to win by a touchdown and cover, 27-20.
Giants at Washington.
I like Washington minus 3 here. They're off a bye. And the Giants, Monday Night Football on a short week. You know I always love that. So they got 5 extra practices, 4 extra practices with a veteran head coach, Ron Rivera. Also the Giants off an emotional last play of the game loss. Do they take a step back? Washington with a bye. Also, Washington's defense is fantastic. We knew it would be. Chase Young, Ron Rivera. And by the way, Daniel Jones, 36 turnovers last 2 years, most in the NFL. I think it comes down to this. It's an ugly, choppy game. Kyle Allen won't turn it over. And I believe Daniel Jones will. I think off a bye, I'll take Washington to win and cover. It's ugly, 24-17.
Dolphins at Cardinals.
Like Arizona, I love Arizona. Off a bye. Miami. 3,000-mile flight cross country. So Tua last week, he was at home, 2 weeks to prepare. He was very comfortable. Now he's going to be in a shootout. Because Arizona off a bye is going to put a lot of points up. Their offense this year is first in total yards, rushing yards, second in total rushing touchdowns. The Dolphins had 145 total yards last week. I think this comes down to Arizona rested, healthier. Tua's going to be forced to play at a much higher rate. They're going to have him throwing 30, 35 times. I don't think he's ready for it. I'm going to take Kyler in Arizona to win and cover 30-22.
Saints at Buccaneers.
Really like Tom Brady and the Bucs here, minus 5.5. Why were the Buccaneers so flat on Monday Night Football? Because they were looking ahead to this thing. So I always say, don't look at a team last week and say, oh, that's what they are. They were looking ahead. Brady, Breeze, the difference is one of them's really good right now. The Bucs have the best point differential in the NFL and the best turnover differential since losing to the Saints in Week 1. Take the first game out. Their defense in Tampa's number 1 in the NFL. They also have the ability with AB to throw over the top, in the slot, up the sidelines. Right now, Tampa is a offense with no limitations. Drew Brees missed practice yesterday. He is banged up. Do not watch game 1 at all. Tampa since then, turnover differential, number 1 in the NFL. Point differential, number 1 in the NFL. It's not the same team. Tampa wins, covers 30-21, and I'm not even sure it'll feel that close. For more of my Blazing 5 picks, check out the Fox Bet social platforms. I don't think I've ever taken 5 favorites. But, you know, it's a different year. Different stuff is happening, and I really like the favorites this week. Some of them are even ugly favorites. Washington's hard to stomach, but the Giants, short week, right? Monday Night Football, like them. So I saw something really interesting pass to me. Yes, I didn't have time to get to it yesterday, so I'm doing it today. So you would think if a quarterback has 40-plus touchdown passes, that is lethal. And the NFL's never been more of an offensive league, right? You think, oh, you start looking at them. Brady and Manning and Mahomes and Marino and Breeze and Rodgers. And, oh, my Andrew Luck. One has won a Super Bowl. One. Kurt Warner, who also, it should be noted, had a Hall of Fame running back with him. Quarterback heroics are great for awards. They're bad for the Lombardi Trophy. And I'll give you an example of why I really worry about the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle has now become increasingly dependent on Russell Wilson. But if you watch what Kansas City's doing with Mahomes, it's really smart. So Patrick Mahomes, in the last 3 wins, has averaged 30 passes a game. That is with the beyond clever Andy Reid, the fastest receiver in the league, arguably the best tight end in football. He's throwing 30 times a game. Colin, what's your point? The average attempts, if you add all the quarterbacks up in the NFL, the average quarterback throws 35 times a game. So they have a better coach, a better quarterback, better weapons. But Kansas City's figuring it out. We want to become less and less reliant on Patrick Mahomes. Now, that's counterintuitive. Why would you do that? Because let's just think about it pragmatically. I don't want him standing back there passing 40 times a game because he could get hit. I want him throwing on 3rd and 3. So the linebackers have to be honest. They come up to the line. Mahomes is throwing. They rush back. I don't want him throwing on 3rd and 8. So Kansas City's figured it out. The better our run game, the better our defense, the less reliant on him, the longer he can play. If you go really look at Brady's biggest years with Randy Moss, they were very reliant on the big play. Most New England teams won it with special teams, defense, and Tom being really efficient, often played poorly in the first halves of Super Bowls. Then the offense, trailing, would turn it on. So I think Kansas City, you would think, would pass more than the average NFL team. And they don't. They pass about 10-15% less than the average NFL team. And now, some of this, I picked Kansas City and Seattle to get to the Super Bowl. Because I will say, Seattle went out and drafted another running back, DJ Dallas, who's their 3 or their 4 running back. If Chris Carson is healthy, I think this is a Super Bowl team. And I don't think they will be as reliant on Russell Wilson once all their running backs are healthy. So that is the good news for Seattle. But I think sometimes you forget, you look at all these, the best years in the history of quarterbacks. Peyton Manning's got 1, 2... Aaron Rodgers has 2, Breeze has 1, Tom's got 1, Marino's got 2, and the only Super Bowl winner was Kurt Warner. And that's because he had Marshall Faulk, who at the time was just, is one of the 10 best running backs in league history. So all that stuff that you think is just so great. It's great for MVP trophies. It is not great for Lombardi trophies. Eric Mangini is around the corner. Great to have you on a Friday. Seattle, as I said, is at Buffalo, and I do like the Seahawks. I don't pick the Seahawks very much on this show. As my sister and others close to the Seahawks say, I'm often picking against Seattle, but I liked them last week, and I like them this week.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Hey there, it's Mango, host of Part-Time Genius, co-founder of Mental Floss, and like many of you, I'm one of the 21 million people that have picked up gardening in the past 6 months. That's why I'm hosting the brand new podcast, Humans Growing Stuff, brought to you by iHeartMedia and your friends at Miracle Grow. Join me on a green adventure as we talk with experts, friends, and surprise guests, and hear what gardening means to them. Listen to Humans Growing Stuff on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. The new season of my podcast is back with more probing conversations that get at the heart of the issues that are keeping us up at night. From sex and dating during COVID to the stark reality that the gender gap is a lot wider than we thought, and the true ramifications of misinformation.
865,000 women were forced out of the workforce because we don't have access to childcare, and so women are making the difficult decision. They're choosing their children and their families.
Where do we go from here? Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. New episodes begin November 11th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Tomorrow, Pac-12 football returns as Arizona State takes on USC in the big noon Saturday game of the week on Fox. Or over on FS1, Big Ten heavyweight Michigan battles Indiana. Both games are tomorrow at noon Eastern on Fox and FS1, and as always, streaming live on the Fox Sports app.
Arizona USC, along with Oregon, could be the best teams in the conference, so I'm interested to watch that. Eric Mangini, Fox Sports NFL analyst. Jets, Browns head coach, got 3 rings with the Patriots, and I appreciate him stopping by today and joining us live. He's actually in Ohio. So I've said before on Tua, he didn't have the size, he didn't have a ton of wiggle, so I'm just kind of waiting to see special. I saw it with Herbert, I saw it with Burrow, I saw it early with Lamar, I see it with Kyler, I'm waiting for special. And right now, Miami's got to see if he can play. So let's put him out there. When you look at young quarterbacks, is there something you would see from Tua and go, that worries me? That worries me. What are you looking to see?
Okay, well, a couple things. I remember last week we talked about whether this was an organizational decision to put him in, or whether or not he was actually ready, and this was the plan overall. And then after watching the game plan last week and watching him play, it felt like it was more of an organizational decision that we got to see what we have here. Now, that being said, there's going to be bumps, and there's going to be a lot of bumps for him because he hasn't played in so long, but you want to see growth from week to week. You want to see presence. You want to see the fact or the ability to go into the huddle and operate the huddle efficiently to really understand what they're trying to achieve offensively, and then the next step is what are they trying to do to us defensively. You'll see a lot of guys who, once they get past their first read, they have no idea what to do with the ball. You see guys who come up the line of scrimmage and there's a blitz coming and they have no idea how to get out of trouble. So you want to see that part of it develop as well. Physically, you'll give him the benefit of the doubt here early because he's transitioning back into playing, but you've got to see that presence, that growth, and that understanding from a week-to-week basis.
Now a guy that's been in the league a while, I like him, but there is now an issue with Jimmy Garoppolo. He gets hurt a lot. New England, a couple different times. Now, first full year in San Francisco, he gets hurt. Now this year, he's going to play 6 games. He is hurt. You can't be in a division with Russell Wilson, who never gets hit, Kyler Murray and Jared Goff. You got to be available. I think Kyle Shanahan has made his mind up. I think last year against the Packers, when they threw 8 times, I'm like, okay, you're telling me something. So, do you think? I think Garoppolo's got legs somewhere, but I think New England may be it. I just think they're done with him, Coach. I think they're done with him in San Francisco.
I like the euphemism that you use of I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I remember when you loved
I know. There
Jimmy
was a
Garoppolo point. Oh my God, there was a love affair that was burning red hot when he wanted him to get rid of Tom Brady, and it was such a big mistake to let him go. And look, I think that the playoffs last year spoke volumes about how they felt in terms of his ability to win a game versus his potential to lose a game. And you never want to have your franchise quarterback be a concern week in, week out of whether or not the game could go either direction based on his decision making. So that's one component of it. The injuries, he's played in since he's been a starter a couple more games than he's missed. And Bill Parcells' durability is more important than ability. It's hard to plan week in, week out if he is your guy, and you don't know whether or not he's actually going to be playing. And now you've got to have real significant depth at that second and third spot. They're in a position financially where they could move on from him with very little repercussions. I think it's like $2 million worth of dead money. Now the flip side of that is they also have him at a great number if they do believe in him. It's hard for me to think, though, he goes back to New England and it works that much better because now you're saying, okay, Kyle Shanahan can't make it work with him, but somehow New England is going to?
Yeah. We kind of know who's good and who's not. There's a bunch of teams in the middle we haven't decided yet. Is Buffalo good or not? Raiders good or not? They played each other. But I look at a team like Pittsburgh, and you were talking before the break, you actually think, despite their record, they're not quite the story they should be. Why?
Yeah, I'm really surprised. It's the best start that the Steelers had in 42 years. They've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. They've got a salty defense. I think there's 7 number 1 draft picks on that defense.
Yeah.
There was 8 when Devin Bush played. You've got a veteran head coach that's been able to win consistently and done really good things with not just maintaining the strengths of their defense, but also adding some things defensively. And look who they played. They've beaten some really good teams. Well, I know you like the grittiness of Philly, and then Cleveland, and then you go to Tennessee. But to me, the metric is last week. When you can play as poorly as they played against a really good team and still figure out a way to win, that tells you a lot about a team. And it's a strange metric to draw on, but usually, average teams or even good teams are going to lose those games. This is a really good team, and you saw that last week in them figuring out a way to win.
Yeah, but what an organization, too. They draft well, they develop. Very rarely does a guy go to the Steelers and not get better, so it's not just drafting. They develop players, which I love. So here's an interesting stat. The average NFL quarterback throws 35 times a game. Mahomes throws 30. And I think this is kind of part of Brett Veach being real smart, the GM, and Andy Reid. They do not want to be reliant on Mahomes. They're going to ask him to be great occasionally. Of the greatest years ever in NFL history, 40-plus touchdown passes. One time that quarterback won a Super Bowl, Kurt Warner, and he also had a great running back in Marshall Faulk. They did have a running game. I look at Seattle, and Eric, my issue is they are so dependent on Russell Wilson. These kind of teams don't win Super Bowls. They're just too Russell Wilson dependent is what I see. What do you see?
I agree with that. I've had this argument with Nick Wright a bunch of times, and everybody talks about let Russell cook. I get that, but there's going to be weeks and there's going to be times where he's off, and it happens with all great quarterbacks. You saw it with Aaron Rodgers against Tampa Bay. There's just those weeks where you can't put everything on the guy's back, and if you haven't developed a second pitch, then you're dead. And I loved what Andy Reid did when he did show the rest of the league, look, if you're going to give me the opportunity to run and run effectively, even though I have all these weapons in the passing game and I am inclined to throw the ball, the discipline that he showed and the message that he sent that they will run the ball, it changes the dynamics when you play Kansas City. Because if you're going to play all split safety defense, you know that Andy Reid has a discipline and also the lack of ego to run the ball down your throat, and it makes it that much harder to defend.
All right, Brady and the Bucs, Breeze and the Saints. Who do you like and why?
I like Brady and the Bucs. My favorite stat coming out of Tampa Bay is they've got 11 penalties against Chicago, and then 7 the next 3 games. And we talked about the impact that Brady had and Brady could have on the culture and the locker room. That takes time when you're freeze. And I think that the difference between this game and the first game is his familiarity with the players. They seem to be pushing the system more to what Tom's most comfortable with.
Yeah.
And the impact that he's having in the locker room. And look, the issues in New Orleans are real with Michael Thomas. I mean, you're missing a guy with 150 catches last year, and the fact that he got benched and there's been whatever's happening behind the scenes, those things are real and they're disruptive.
Yeah, that is a weird thing. He's practicing but not playing. I don't know what it is. Did you ever have a time in your career in the NFL where you had a week, where you had a disruption in the locker room? Did it affect the team?
Yeah, there's disruptions in locker rooms a lot of weeks. It's just how well you can keep it under control, and also who else is in the locker room. What type of leadership you have in the locker room. When you've got veteran guys and you've got guys that have some authority, they don't let that stuff go too far. But it's terribly disruptive because you can have cliques form, you can have differences of opinion, you can have guys who feel like the coaches are treating them unfairly, and it's just you're fighting yourself instead of doing what's important, which is getting ready to fight your opponent.
Yeah. Eric Mangini, 3 rings. Good talking to you, Coach.
All right, have a great weekend.
Yeah, it'll be. I think most people have come to the conclusion that Garoppolo's done in San Francisco. The question is, where does he go? I think And I'll talk about this later. I think New England fits because I don't think New England has an answer at quarterback next year. I don't think the Cam thing works. Stidham's obviously doesn't work. They haven't shown an ability. They've drafted 11 quarterbacks, Belichick, since Brady came into the NFL. He's one of them. They've hit on 2. Brady and Garoppolo's okay. I think they're going to go back and get Garoppolo. That's what I feel. I just like they haven't shown an ability to draft quarterbacks. I mean, since Gronk, tight ends, wide receivers. I mean, the running backs have been okay. Offensive line is the one place they develop players, but they had Dante Scarnecchia. So I think they're going to run out of weapons here, and they're going to be too good. They'll beat the Jets twice. They'll have 4 wins. That's not a top 6 pick. You're not going to get a quarterback. So I don't think they're going to take Darnold away because I think Belichick would like to face Darnold more. I think he's had great success with him. So I think you start looking around. Matt Ryan is immobile and expensive. Bill doesn't like to pay for anything. Garoppolo's cheap. You can give up a draft pick, pay him $25 million. You can not have to pay him a lot. There's not a lot of market for Jimmy Garoppolo because of his injury, so you can get him at a discount. He knows your system. Joy with the news.
Heard on the news. This is the Herdline News.
I also highly doubt that the Jets are going to give Bill Belichick Sam Darnold.
No, that's a great point. That will not happen.
That's not going to happen. So Aaron Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns last night on his way to a 34-17 win for the Packers. And that put him in some elite company. He became the second player in NFL history to throw at least 24 touchdowns and 2 or fewer interceptions in his team's first 8 games of the season. The other is Tom Brady, who threw 30 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in his first 8 games of the 2007 season when the Patriots went 16-0 and lost in the Super Bowl. But Rodgers is playing at a very high level. Again, obviously, really connecting with Devontae last night was good for them. I felt like this was a game. This game went exactly how it was supposed to go, and that is the Packers get back to playing the way they're supposed to play. They beat up on a not a bad team, but a team that has just been ravaged by injuries. I mean, Nick Mullins, I don't know what you expected. Like, they were showing shots of C.J. Beathard, possibly putting him out there last night. So we know what the 49ers and the situation is there. It's not that they're a bad team. They have way too many injuries to overcome, and then the losses from COVID last night as well. But I thought this was good for the Packers. I didn't learn anything about the Packers, but I felt like it was a good morale boost. You know, after that loss to the Vikings. Again, I really don't know what to make of them. They're kind of front runners. They play great against really bad teams, and if it's a physical team with a run game, they struggle. They're contenders, but at the end of the day, I think it comes down to situations in big games in the playoffs, and if you can't get a big stop, I don't know how that's going to work for them. But again, I don't put this on Aaron Rodgers. And when they have games like that, like last night where Aaron Rodgers does things like that, it irritates me even more that the draft went the way that it did for the Packers.
Yeah, because they're if they would have taken a great defensive tackle, because they have a little bit of a pass rush, it was a long-term draft. When Aaron Rodgers is a short-term player, he's got 3 great years left. Get him players.
Well, that was my issue. I understand the value of getting a quarterback. We were just talking about this with the Patriots, right? You want to take a quarterback every couple drafts, make sure that you're developing someone, you have someone in the pipeline, that's fine. But Aaron Rodgers is not at that point yet. So if you're picking someone who's a backup or kind of interesting, or he falls to you, but that was an aggressive move for Jordan Love. You can't disguise it any other way. You moved up to get him. And for what? That was not what you needed. You were right there. You were a game away from the Super Bowl last year, and you did nothing to change what you needed to change in order to get to the Super Bowl. So the Bucs already have an incredible amount of offensive weapons, but according to Chris Collinsworth, the team still could use a slot receiver who can get open quickly in the middle of the field. Antonio Brown will make his debut for Tampa on Sunday, and Collinsworth thinks he has a good chance to be that guy, saying Brown could well be that missing piece that puts them over the top. Now, generally, I don't think of Antonio Brown as a slot receiver.
You can put him there. Actually, yeah, Mike Evans is a perimeter. He's so big. Godwin, you could do slot if you wanted to. Listen, if you're going to play 3...
Somebody has to.
And they also have Scotty Miller, who's super fast. So I think you can do a lot with this offense. I know Tom's always liked a slot receiver. Certainly, he feels very comfortable getting rid of the ball fast at this point in his career.
Yes, I'm really interested to see how they use Antonio Brown on Sunday, just because he hasn't played for a while, and obviously this is a new system for him. I'm not saying I'm skeptical. I just want to watch. I just want to see before I make any predictions about what this is going to be and how it's going to work. Obviously, Brady is extremely invested. in some ways, I don't know if that works against him, that he's going to allow that, personal situation to get in the way of spreading the ball around. Who knows? Either way, this is a must-watch game. And the Saints are dealing with Drew Brees' shoulder injury this week. He has downplayed the significance of the injury on Wednesday, but he was limited in practice for the second straight day on Thursday. Gottlieb was on with us a little bit earlier and suggested that this might be a game where we see Jameis Winston.
I think it would almost be more interesting. I really do. I would like to see that.
Well, I just think it's strange that they're not really talking about this. Like, how significant is this injury?
This is a bad locker room right now. Nobody wants to talk about it. There's stuff going on here. Stuff going on. Maybe because of that moment in the preseason, the Black Lives Matter, but I have no idea what it is, but something's not right here.
Something's not right, and the Michael Thomas situation is strange as well, as Eric just mentioned. I don't know. I picked the Saints to go to the Super Bowl this year. I don't know how strong I feel about this now. Obviously, we have a lot of football left to play, but this is a big game, and I feel like the Bucs are going to come into this game with all of the emotional energy because they lost the first game to them. This is a big game for the division and Antonio Brown. This is a must-watch one this weekend.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
I was talking to Eric Mangini. I don't think it's interesting. So I was just looking at the easiest and hardest remaining schedules in the NFL, and New England's got the second easiest to the Browns. That means they should win some games. They have the Jets twice. They'll win both those. So there's 12 teams currently with at least 2 games under 500. There's a lot of bad teams in the NFL. I mean, we're halfway through. There's a lot of not very good teams. And New England's got 2 wins. They're 2-5, and they're going to beat the Jets twice. They're a touchdown favorite this weekend. So they have 4 wins. So, and the second easiest schedule going forward. What does that tell you? They're probably going to win 4 games. Maybe 5, but let's say it's 4. That means they're not going to get one of these. They're not going to get one of these great 3 college quarterbacks. There's about a 70, 30, 80, 20 chance now. New England's not, if they win, if they beat the Jets, they're not going to get one of these quarterbacks. And so, again, Belichick has won 43% of his games without Tom Brady. There's no evidence they're just going to bounce back after this divorce with Brady. Secondly, Belichick, the more power he has, the less help and assistance he takes in the draft, and his last 4 or 5 drafts have been lousy, especially on offense, and there's no sure thing at quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo could be the best thing available on the market for the price. He doesn't want to pay Matt Ryan dollars. So, this idea, I said this, this idea that, Brady's going to flourish a year after the divorce, and Belichick's going to bottom out, and then they're going to bounce right back is, I think New England was mostly irrelevant before Tom Brady, and I think Belichick could be irrelevant after Tom Brady. I didn't think they were going to be good this year. All the media experts kept saying, it'll be great. They're not great. They're the worst offense in the league. And I don't think all this stuff is solvable. How is it solvable? They don't like to overpay for wide receivers. They don't know what wide receivers, tight ends look like post-Gronk in the draft. Belichick won't let anybody have a say in the draft. They've gotten progressively worse the more power he's had. There's no answer at quarterback. It's not Cam. It's not Stidham. They won't get the draft. And I said this yesterday, is that Brady was going to succeed because Brady is built. He's an aspirational personality. He is built to grow and evolve. That's who he is. Belichick's very much who he is. I'm not changing. This is the way I do things. And I think, we're 6-8 games post-divorce, and it's way worse than any of you thought. The Buccaneers and Brady are way better than you thought, and New England's way worse, and I don't think the gap closes. I don't think there's an answer at quarterback. Tell me where it is. I think it's Garoppolo, and I don't think that's great. I think that's good. I don't think it's great. Tom Curran, New England. We'll talk about some of this stuff and more. Don't go anywhere. Terry Bradshaw stops by last hour as well. Blazing 5 picks are in. J-Max has his as well.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hey everyone, it's Cody Ko here. You may know me from Vine, YouTube, or as the co-host of the Tiny Meat Gang podcast. But my brand new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, presented by Trojan Brand Condoms, is out right now. Here's a little preview from my chat with Tim Dillon. What do you seek out in a partner?
I want someone impressed that I'm on this show.
Yeah.
You did a podcast with Cody Ko. That's big. He's got a trillion gajillion followers on Ding Dong.
On TikTok.
Whatever it is.
On Ding Dong.
Zip Zop or whatever the kids are on.
My advice to you right now, go listen to my new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company.
I'm Wheezy, former tech exec, now podcaster, comedy writer, and I make up half of the Horrible Decisions podcast. We combine comedy, raunchiness, all in effort to destigmatize kinks and normalize conversations that are normally taboo, like sex, dating, and relationships. Make sure you tune in this Monday so you can hear conversations like these.
He sets up the phone, he bends over in the... Do y'all want to see it?
No.
We have never suggested cheating, bro. So I'm not going to tell her to cheat on this man. Otherwise, it's great.
Why is Future toxic?
Are you serious?
I'm just asking. I don't want no beef on horrible decisions. Maybe that was a horrible decision to ask that question.
Wait. Join us every Monday on the iHeart app, the #1 place for podcasts. And don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeart Radio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Well, I don't even try to make people upset, but people in Boston were all upset with me yesterday because I came out and I said, listen, a lot of times, and I've been in this situation, I conformed with a company for 10 years, but it really didn't define me. It wasn't who I was. And I think Tom Brady's always been a Californian, global, aspirational. He's not a Boston guy. Couldn't wait to get out. The minute he got out, he wanted to go and have fun. And a lot of people in Boston are like, I don't like the new Brady. And my takeaway is, how do we know it's the new Brady? Tom's got houses in Costa Rica, the supermodel, the brand where it's like no drinking. Boston's defined by Sam Adams. How do we know that Tom didn't conform and who he really is a risk-taking, player-friendly, live and let live guy? And Tom Curran, Patriots insider, NBC Sports, is all fired up on this. I got so much good hate mail yesterday. Let's bring him in. All right, Tom, everybody's fired up about how do I know that Tom Brady wasn't just the great conformer, and in the end, Brady's very comfortable in Tampa. This is who he is, and the AB living with him, and he's not necessarily a Boston guy. He was just a great Boston employee.
Colin, we all knew that. No one was under any kind of confusion in terms of Tom Brady. He's a bit of a chameleon. But the one thing that's been constant is the way the guy competes. And that, to me, was what defined him here. Wasn't that, look, pictures of him at Carnival with shaved armpits and going down a slide and licking ice cream with Giselle, that wasn't really something that most people here in Boston identified with. But it was the unmitigated grit that whether it's Boston or Philly or New York or Los Angeles or Dallas, you name it, every single city in this country has a level of grit that it identifies with. So you can be as dimple-chinned, handsome, and well squared away as Tom Brady is, but Bostonians knew that he was from Northern California. They identified with him because of who he was and the way he identified here, but no one, Colin, no one ever was under the delusion that he was a full-blown Bostonian.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I don't buy... Belichick's won 43% of his games. I know he's a great coach without Brady, but this idea they're going to bounce back, my guess is they win 4 to 5 games. That's going to be too many wins to get a top 3 quarterback. What's the answer at quarterback? It's not Stidham. It's not Cam. Do you think they go after Garoppolo?
What's mystifying to me, and I'll get to the Garoppolo in 1 second if you'll bear with me, because it's interesting to look at the whole arc of what's happened. In 2017, Belichick made it very clear, we're not trading Jimmy Garoppolo for really any offer. Then Halloween rolls around and he says, let's just give him to Kyle Shanahan for a second rounder. No auction, no pass him around the league, let's move on. And after that, what have they done at the quarterback position? While Colin actively holding the door open for Tom Brady and saying, go ahead, you want to go, go. We're not going to give you any more money. We're going to give you hard-to-reach incentives. You want to go, you can go. But what did they do at the position? They drafted Danny Edling, and they drafted Jarrett Stidham in the 4th round. Now we look at Jimmy, and I wouldn't want him back necessarily. He's going to be probably over a $25 million a year player. He's been there for 3 years, Colin, out in San Francisco. And in the 3 seasons, full seasons he was there, he's not going to finish 2 of them. He couldn't make it 6 quarters in New England without getting hurt. So I don't understand what the Patriots' plan was at quarterback to succeed the greatest ever. And if it was Garoppolo, that wasn't a good plan either.
It's interesting. I said this. One of the things you have to be reluctant to do when you get power, don't use it. Don't flex. And that is what, like the Woody Hayes, Popovich has done a little. I would say Bobby Knight has done. They get power and they use it. I am concerned about this. The more Super Bowl trophies that Bill Belichick had, the more he has controlled the draft, and I don't think, frankly, he knows how to draft a wide receiver or a tight end because they haven't had a Pro Bowler at a skill position since Gronk. I don't like their roster offensively right now, which is why I thought Cam, after a couple weeks, I'm like, maybe this works. He's their best athlete.
Yep.
Don't you think they have a personnel problem and a drafting problem as well?
Drastic personnel and drafting problems, and it's really existed since the 2012 draft. They hit Hightower and Chandler Jones, and after that, Jamie Collins, against scouts' advice, and yeah, he was a good player, but Jamie Collins, and then Aaron Dobson. 14 was Dominique Easley and Garoppolo. 15, they got Joe Tooney in the draft that year. 16, they just haven't done well. Isaiah Wynn, N'Keal Harry, and Sony Michel are some of their most recent first-round picks. Kyle Duggar this year was their highest pick. Those aren't players that are setting the world afire, nor have they cleaned up in free agency, Colin. So it's hard to look at what the Patriots are doing personnel-wise and say they're killing it. And Scott Pioli gave excellent pushback, I think, to Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
But I think Nick Caserio and Bill right now don't seem to share a brain, or, scarily enough, might be heresy, a plan or a vision.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? By the way, what do people in Boston think today about Brady's emergence and success? Is there a little bitterness?
Oh yeah, there's definitely bitterness. It's a very splintered community. Some people are of a mind that this is exactly what you're looking for. We all knew this was going to happen with Tom Brady, and other people are of a mind that this is not what we thought was going to happen, and Brady was trying to weasel his way out of town, shoot his way out of town, and as a result, that's why he's down there. He wanted to leave. That's not the truth. And then there's people split right down the middle who say, well, fine, he's doing well there, and I'm happy for him, but the Patriots are better off without him, in that they would have just been kicking rocks all season long.
Yeah. Tom Curran, NBC Sports, Patriots Insider. It's great having you on the show. I appreciate it.
We're done?
Well, I could ask you another. I mean, I wanted to ask you why didn't they trade Stephon Gilmore? But my guess is they wanted 9 picks for him. Why didn't they trade him?
And I think 100%. You can't. I mean, when Bill is in an unprecedented spot right now, unfamiliar territory, you trade away a guy like Stephon Gilmore, defending player of the year, defensively. You're basically telling these players who are jumping through hoops COVID-wise, many of whom you had to convince to play this year, that we're going to pull the ripcord on the season. And Colin, already last week, he made a suggestion that the team was all in, and this is basically a rebuilding year. Said that to WEEI and to Charlie Weiss both. If I'm a player or a coach and I hear that comment, I'm like, we're not all in this year? Well, then why am I staying here until midnight? Why am I busting my ass to get out there? So I just think that was an unbelievable misstep in terms of getting out there. And Bill got over his skis a little bit in trying to defend where things are and why they're where they are.
Okay, I got 60 seconds. Antonio Brown Brady, does it work in Tampa?
It does work in Tampa because Brady, I think, was of a mind last year that Antonio got hosed. He didn't deserve to be released. What he did with the text messaging was outrageous, but I think that Tom felt he was reachable, fixable, and the Patriots cut him loose, and you saw disarray. This definitely visits on Tom Brady if it doesn't work.
Yeah, there's no question that Tom wanted this puppy to work. All right, Tom, we got to run. Thanks, buddy.
All right, buddy. Good
All
stuff.
right, take care. So he's saying that people in Boston knew Brady wasn't a Bostonian.
Was it the Uggs?
Well, I mean, I've said yesterday, Aikman's from Dallas. He feels Dallas. Big Ben, scruffy, tough guy, not refined. That's Pittsburgh. He's a Pittsburgh guy. Feels like it, right? Ohio, Pittsburgh. Certain guys feel like certain places. I don't think there's any question. I mean, let's be honest about Aaron Rodgers doesn't feel like Green Bay. Brady never felt like Boston to me. He's happy.
He never felt like Boston, but I think to Tom's point, if you win, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Marino's not from Miami, but after a while, he felt like Miami.
He's very Miami now.
Yeah, he's Pittsburgh guy, but he feels he's kind of glamorous. Miami's glamorous.
Got that tan going, good hair.
Trying to think of, Eli Manning didn't feel New York and won 2 Super Bowls, and I never felt, he's just he just feels like he should be the Titans quarterback.
Yeah.
Eli Manning should be the Titans quarterback. Didn't we do this before? We said I think we did this once, and I love this segment.
We switched the quarterbacks around.
What quarterback match? Like I think Russell Wilson feels like New York. Sierra, Russell, they look like models.
No, we did do this before, yeah.
Yeah, it's big. He's a big brand. Like they feel like
we transplanted everyone.
We did. I love that. We have to do that again.
Except for Ben. I think Ben stayed there.
Sam Darnold feels like a California quarterback to me. It's a little loose.
Really? He feels so much like the Colts to me.
I don't know. Maybe the Colts.
Yeah.
About three months. Hour 3 next.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and NBC News senior business correspondent, and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. Times were complicated a year ago, but now, complicated doesn't seem to cover it. Sometimes it feels like we're being asked to play a game where the rules have changed, but we don't know what those new rules are, so I want to try and figure it out together. The new season of my podcast, Modern Rules, is back with more probing conversations because how else can we meet the demands of these crazy times unless we're at the very least trying to get smarter? From sex and dating during COVID to the dangers of misinformation campaigns. We're talking about all of it.
And so what I see coming is, however this ends, that next phase will be a really exciting beginning for sex and relationships. I think it's going to lead to an actual, like a post-COVID sexual revolution.
Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. New episodes begin November 11th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Do flowers have best friends? I don't know. Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company.
And I'm Wheezy, former tech exec turned podcaster and comedy writer. We're the hosts of the Horrible Decisions podcast. Through laughter and education, we work to destigmatize kinks, normalize conversations that are taboo, like sex, dating, relationships. Check us out every Monday.
That's right. Don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, the #1 app for podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Chiefs Panthers is featured in this week's free-to-play Super 6 contest. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games, so get your picks in before kickoff Sunday for your chance to be a millionaire. And for top stories, scores, and more, go to the Fox Sports app. Colin, Chiefs Panthers is one of the matchups this week. Give us your winner and final score.
I actually really like what they're doing in Carolina. I like that college guy, and I think Teddy Bridgewater's closer to...
Played well.
He's closer to Drew Brees this morning than he is further apart. He can't throw a deep ball. Chiefs win by a touchdown, but I would take the points in Carolina. I think I like what they're doing there.
What's the points?
About 10 points.
Yeah, because the minute that I got the first pick this week, and the first choice to me was the minute I'm first pick, I saw Kansas City hosting Carolina.
Boom.
I went, boom, that's me. It'd take me 2 seconds.
By the way, here's an interesting one for you. So the league average right now is 35 throws a game for a quarterback.
Right.
Terry Bradshaw joining us, the Hall of Famer.
Hey, folks. I'm over here adjusting my zipper.
That's okay. Well, the TV audience obviously knows. Your radio audience, Terry Bradshaw, NFL Fox. Mahomes is throwing 30, and he's better than all of them.
Wow.
So it's interesting because Kansas City's clearly saying, listen, we love him, but we don't want him going back to pass 42 times.
Right.
So you played in a different era. But you had Swan and Stallworth and Benny Cunningham.
Right.
What did you throw? How many throws a game did you throw?
You know what, Colin? Someone will have to look this up, but I think 19.
Wow.
I think for my career, 19 was my average, I think.
You were a power running team.
Right. Right.
But
we ran 65, 70%. Yeah.
But you, like Mahomes, were a home run hitter. You took some strikes down the field.
I would be a Josh Allen today. If I came out of Louisiana Tech completing 52% of my passes, maybe. I went into the NFL and retired completing 51.9% of. So I was true to my form, as Josh Allen was a 56% guy at Wyoming, and he started out at 70. Now he's getting back to what he is, and they're saying he's terrible at 56%. But he is. That is with the West Coast offense and the way the triangle offense works today. It's 65%. Is not uncommon if you run the West Coast offense.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about, you're from Pittsburgh, obviously not from there, but that's right. Your 4 rings. And Eric Mangini came on earlier, and he goes, this is weird. The Steelers are probably the second biggest brand in the league. They're the only undefeated team.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about them.
Right.
And he's like, he goes, you got to
get Pittsburgh. Is it because they're Pittsburgh?
Well, I don't know what it is, because they're not. You know what I always like about them? They don't just draft players, they develop them. They're really good about. Terry, a lot of teams just collect talent.
Yeah.
So when you even go back to your days, we gotta give, because I've been critical of Tomlin before. Sometimes they're not buttoned up, but boy, I watch them, Terry. They have changed their defense. The Minka Fitzpatrick deal.
They just made the deal from the Jets to get that linebacker.
Avery Williamson.
Yes. Go like Bush. The other thing about the Pittsburgh drafting department or the scouting was the bunch that was fired in Detroit. Did you know that? I can't think of their name. I apologize. I just studied them the other day. I very seldom look into scouting departments, but they were fired by the Detroit Lions, and both the scout and the general manager ended up going to Pittsburgh.
I think they're
Kevin. Is it Kevin?
Kevin Colbert.
Is that it, Kevin Colbert?
I think they have the best constructed roster in the NFL.
They know what they want. See, if you know what you want, and you're working in correlation with what your head coach wants and likes, and then you all three equal need, and you say, here's our needs, here's what fits the Steeler and the Tomlin mold, and then that's the player, and they don't get away from that. And you look at them year in and year out. Great defense,
physical players,
great defense. Yes, very physical.
It's interesting because I talked about this. I said, a smart person told me years ago. He said, when you get older and you got more money and power, don't use it. You won't have to. When you have power, people know it. Don't flex. It turns people off, and it'll be avarice. It'll be ego.
That's a good point.
It's an interesting point. Yeah. And Belichick's obviously great. But the more Super Bowls, the more power he has in drafting. Terry, that's the slowest offense in the league. Bill has pushed people away. Sean Payton's great, right, but Mickey Loomis runs that draft. And I look at New England right now, Terry.
With Payton. Now, they didn't do it on his own.
That's right.
But it's not like some of these head coaches that didn't even know who they drafted. The guy in Green Bay, LaFleur.
Yeah.
He found out they drafted a quarterback in the first round over TV. Now, what does that tell you about Green Bay? What about LaFleur and what he needed to be? Do we not need a wide receiver in Green Bay? Do we not need a linebacker in Green Bay? We got rid of the one we had. So that's to me is not the way to run a draft.
So, but my point with New England is we have this idea that they'll rebuild and it'll be easy. My takeaway is not that easy. By the way, Chuck Noll, when you left, didn't win as many games. I don't think New England's good offensively. I don't think they're fast. I don't think they have a quarterback. I don't think they have an answer. And I think they're going to win 4 or 5 games and not get one of the college guys. So go back. When you left Pittsburgh, the idea is Knowles, and Chuck Noll was a legend. I'm not saying that. But boy, a good quarterback lubricates everything. Just a little easy. What were they the last 4 years? When you left the next 4 years, how did Pittsburgh do? 8, 7?
I think they did pretty good.
I think they were okay.
Mark Malone was a quarterback. I remember.
I remember.
They made the playoffs.
But they weren't winning playoff games.
Well, but they made the playoffs.
All right.
Now, Bill, look, there's a Tom Brady and a Bill Belichick thing going on in New England, and we all suspect, Tom wanted to get away. Tom wanted to win weather. Tom wanted to play. Tom wanted to prove that he was whatever. I don't know if all that's true. That's just us sitting here on television and radio just talking.
Right.
Belichick, on the other hand, he's got a bear covered, and a lot of his guys opted out because of COVID-19 not to play. There's like five really good defense, 5 really good players, most of them defense. So he has to get a quarterback, and the best one he thought was Cam Newton. I think Cam's probably going to be one and done there.
Yeah, it feels like it.
I think that's probably where you look at it. And then they have not had to now get a quarterback. They've been able to get a Jimmy Garoppolo let's take a shot on Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, out of where? Eastern Illinois, wherever he went.
They've drafted 11 quarterbacks. They hit on 2.
Okay, let's try Jimmy, and no big pressure. We have Tom. Well, now there's pressure. Now that guy you draft in the second round or possibly move up in the first, he has got to hit. He has got to hit. Otherwise, you're setting your entire team goes back. You know, it's like the Cowboys. They finally hit. Now they haven't signed. Now they lose it. You've got to hit on that quarterback. Now you build around that. Now you can build. And you can't. If I were running a team today, Colin, I would do one or two things. I'd build defense, or I'd build offense, and then I'd build the opposite. I'd stay with one side of the ball so I could at least be good on one side of the ball while I put the other side together.
Yeah. Getting the quarterback's not as easy as people think.
It's impossible.
12 quarterbacks have been drafted in the last 3 drafts in the first round. 4 are hits. There's questions about the other 8. So it's hard.
We are very blessed. And I think all the football fans out there, now that we have Tua, he's going to be a star.
Okay, let's see. We'll see.
He is. No, he is.
All right.
Now, they got to put things right. Kyler Murray, a guy I did not think was going. Kyler Murray is the shocker of all because he's got to sit so deep.
Yeah.
They have to. He takes his shotgun and he drops back. He's 10 yards deep so he can throw the post routes.
Yeah.
But Mike, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's won me over. That head coach, I was listening to you earlier. That head coach is a better head coach in the NFL than he was in college.
Yeah.
It was just shocking. That
never happens.
Never happens. So you got him. Then of course Mahomes has been there. And you got Allen up in Buffalo. We've got that. We've got the kid Burrows in Cincinnati. Now we got Herbert out here in
Big
Los
arm.
Angeles. I'm telling you, the NFL is blessed right now to have 7, 8 real. Jackson.
Lamar Jackson.
7 or 8 really great. Wilson is still a young guy, but we've got young
By the way,
players.
and the older guys are playing longer, so the league's in really good hands.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to sound like I always say this. I never liked Baker out of college. I didn't like Johnny Manziel.
I don't like Baker. I don't like Baker Mayfield.
All right, you don't.
I never did like Baker Mayfield.
How come?
I don't like people like that. I'm a character guy.
Yeah.
And maybe I've never met the man. He may be the most wonderful human being in the world, but his body language and the way he acts, it's a turn off for me. That's just me. When Cam Newton came out, I didn't like Cam Newton. Yeah. I don't like all that first down Superman.
Okay.
I don't like that stuff. That's me.
Okay, so I've said this. So Drew Lock, now he's got a good sense of humor because he heard I said it. So Drew Lock came out last week. Nobody even knows that he can play, and he's dancing after the touchdown. I'm like, win a few games. I didn't like Manziel in college. He was a big. I don't like. Now Aaron can get away with Aaron.
Manziel I couldn't stand either.
I didn't like him.
You can probably pick up. I don't like guys like that.
Right.
Shut your mouth up.
Okay, now watch this. This playing stuff. Now Drew Lock. Do we have the bite? Drew was funny.
Drew Lock. Now I don't know anything about him. He's a kid from Missouri. Playing in Denver.
He's got a nice arm.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a baller. And he made fun of me. He's like, well, a coward can't dance. That's why he doesn't. Do we have the sound? All right. So, but the point being is, but I don't love this, and everybody calls me old grumpy guy. It tells me that you lack a little self-awareness. That's what and you're running a $4 billion franchise. I don't like it. And you don't like it either.
No, look. I don't like it because that's not the way I was raised. I was taught to have ultimate respect for the people you're competing against. Show them great respect and have great humility. Keep your mouth shut. It's hard enough to win.
Is that how your dad said?
Huh?
Your dad was into that.
Absolutely. And so that is the way I've grown up. That's the way my girls know that's the way Dad feels. You be sweet and kind to people. That doesn't mean you don't go out on the competitive environment or on the field and try to just destroy them. I'm fine with that, but be cool. Be nice.
Yeah, you were never a big fist pumper.
No. Just do your job. I don't get that, but I understand. Well, I'm trying to make my brand. Well, where's Manziel's brand right now? Got a job doing something, right?
Right.
And Baker Mayfield, just something about him. I don't care anything about him. Don't care anything about him. You know what? I was on Aaron Rodgers a little bit last night.
I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I'm just like Aaron Rodgers lost last week to Minnesota, and it was just like, oh, what the hell? Well, we're going to lose this game. But if I was trying to make a point, and I didn't write any notes, and so I went way out in left field. Jimmy Johnson said, I called Jimmy this morning. He said, where were you going with that quarterback thing? And I'm like, I got to be honest with you, Jimmy. I couldn't even think of a quarterback. So I brought up Burt Jones. Then I talked about Roger Staubach. Then I finally got into Troy Aikman. And then I got into Tom Brady, because had Tom Brady been in Green Bay last week, he wouldn't have been sitting over there on the sideline looking at the tablet. He'd been screaming and hollering, and that's why he's got 6, and that's why he has 1.
No.
And that was...
I tend to agree with you on that right there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you and I agree with.
Yeah.
By the way, throw it out there. We all like Dak, but whatever. So Dallas is bad. They're not as bad as the Jets, but they may be close.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so if they are bad. So here's the thing. There's 3 teams in the league we think are atrocious. Jets, Jags, Cowboys.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so Justin Fields.
Jerry Jones, he's just got to be throwing up right now.
Would you at least look? Justin Fields, quarterbacks Ohio State. 46 touchdowns, 3 picks. Number 1 high school kid. I can like Dak.
Yeah.
Don't you have to have a meaning whether or not you move off Dak? If you have the 2nd pick and Dallas may end up there, Terry? I mean, I can like Dak and respect him. This kid is great.
Okay, so you take Justin Fields, and right now, the MO coming out of Texas Tech quarterbacks was what? They didn't fare very well. Right. University of Houston, remember when they were doing the run and gun and all that, and they didn't fare very well in the NFL. Matter of fact, Ware won the Heisman Trophy. Nothing in the NFL. So you're looking at Ohio State now, and you're looking, okay, name me the last great quarterback that played in the NFL out of Ohio State, if there's ever been one.
No,
So now you've got the guy in Washington that's,
Dwayne Haskins didn't work.
He didn't work. Is this guy like Haskins? I mean,
he's a better athlete.
Okay,
he runs around.
All right, so you got that situation. I think the best, you got to look at it. But the question with Dak Prescott is that if in fact he's healthy and he's young, and he will be, he will be. You got to make sure of that. Whether or not you sign him to a long-term deal, or just franchise him again?
I think I'd franchise him one more time.
Year. Make sure
he
just play a healthy year. Yeah, that's probably And then you got the kid down in Clemson, and everyone's going to want him. The Jets going to want him. What are they going to do with Darnold?
Well, I think the Colts.
See, I like Darnold. I like that kid.
So do I.
Yeah, and the Jet quarterback. Yeah.
I think New York doesn't have a brand right now, and in a highly competitive city.
Right.
Trevor Lawrence is hope. They've seen Darnold in that's what I think they do. I think, by the way,
hope with the Jets or hope with the Giants?
Well, no, Giants will stay on Daniel Jones.
I see. Now you and I agree to that. I got a lot of people that tell me I'm crazy, but I said no. I like Dan. There's a lot we can work with here.
Yeah, with Darnold you can as well, but the difference is the Jets are poorly run, the Giants aren't, and the Jets will say, Trevor Lawrence can solve everything.
I got news for them there.
It's not.
Yeah.
Terry, they're the only team in the NFL except the Jaguars. You could make an argument they need a player in every unit. All 10. They need a player
everywhere. They do some crazy things, and I don't understand a lot of these athletes. Le'Veon Bell was going to be the savior up there for running back. Le'Veon Bell is just dumb as a box of rocks.
Oh, come on.
Number one, he should have stayed in Pittsburgh.
Well, he should have stayed in Pittsburgh.
Stay in Pittsburgh where that offense fits you. They feature you.
They loved you.
You're on your way to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Brown, same thing. Stay in so you're going to get paid. But what is is $2 or $3 million more when you're making 10 or 12 million worth more, and then to go someplace and be totally a bust?
Or I think environment is unless you're LeBron, environment is 75. Like James Harden could score anywhere. James Harden's the best scorer in the world in basketball.
Like, yeah, but he's got the ball in his hand, and it's one-on-one. That's basketball. We're talking football.
It's mostly environment. Yeah. There's no question.
See, I just think these guys just don't think. And I think all of us old athletes, and that's what I am, we all look at it and go, would I have left Pittsburgh and that incredible bunch of talented players I was playing with so I can make $200,000, making $300,000, I'm going to make $500,000 to go play for Buffalo or whomever?
Yeah.
Would I do that? No. Why? I got a chance to win a Super Bowl.
I will tell you this, though. If I was a running back, I would think about it. Because my career lasts 5-6 years. Quarterback, I wouldn't.
What? Talking about now or then?
No, I'm thinking right now. A running back's the only position in football on offense that you can't change the violence. You're going to get hit without seeing it. Receivers, tight end, it's the only position you can't protect. Now, linebackers, same thing, collisions. But if I was a running back, and I'm sitting there thinking, $14 million down in Tampa with no state tax or $9 million here, I think I'd take it. I think as a running back, I'd go. Now, I'm not saying Le'Veon should have because the Jets are poorly run and the Steelers are great. But I get running backs leaving.
Okay.
I get it.
Okay, they leave it for money. They're not leaving for any other reason than money.
Well,
money. It's money. It's all money.
Well, that's okay, though, but a lot of people do stuff for money.
Yeah. No, it's got to be big money.
Yes.
It can't be just change. It's got to be cash, big cash.
Yeah, no, but running back,
all right,
I leave for money.
You know, because their careers, running backs in the NFL, everybody always says, well, we got to have a running back. We got this Ezekiel Elliott, and now we're finding out, as all of us know, running backs, the really good running backs normally have creases to run in.
Yeah.
And then those that don't have creases are really good at vision and feeling and doing the cutback stuff. And then that's it. Then you do a little play action off of them. And you got to have a running game. Then you sign these guys. Then your offensive line's no good. Now, what good does it do to have a running back? Because he can't go anywhere.
Right.
They don't go anywhere. They don't move the line of scrimmage.
The only running back I've seen in my life.
Barry Sanders.
I was going to say Walter Payton. He had Noah Jackson was his best offensive lineman. He had 4 bad offensive linemen and was unstoppable. Barry Sanders was great.
Yeah.
Do you know Chris
It's hard not to talk. When you talk great running backs,
Chris Spielman.
Well, the first one comes to mind is Barry.
Chris Spielman told me when he was a Lion and got drafted, is the only. Chris Spielman was a great.
Yes.
He was one of the best college players of all time.
Right.
He said you would, as a linebacker, get in line for the tackling drill, and you would count 1, 2, 3, 4. He's
very
go ahead. He goes, you'd never want to tackle him. He said he would humiliate you. He goes, you would count and go, I'm not going to be the third guy because he's the third guy to touch it. He says, only player in my career. It's like I had no interest in practice competing against him.
Yeah, remember the old Oklahoma drill?
That's the drill.
Yeah, where they snap the ball and you go straight through there and you go right or left and you just get plastered. Yeah, I can only imagine.
And Spielman was great, and he said, I practice. You would look so bad at practice. It's like I had no interest.
Barry Macular. There's a great comedian named Jerry Clower. You ever heard of Jerry Clower? He's a country comedian. Of course not. And he played at Mississippi State. And he played defensive tackle. And he played against this great running back who was a lot like Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
And he had a great All-American in by him, and he was chasing this running back, and he gave out in the fourth quarter. He was exhausted, and Jerry said, "You gotta stop chasing him. He'll be back in a minute."
Yeah.
And it's like Barry. And then he comes. Yeah.
All right, we got to roll. I'm way late on this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's my fault. We just got 17 minutes.
I'm through. You gave me 22 minutes last time.
What time do we come back?
No, you said 22.
We come back.
No, I'm not complaining. I've never been on a show where I've got minutes stuck on my head.
Alex, how much do we give Terry? 21 and a half minutes.
That's a bull.
That's what they told me. Okay, we gotta go. Okay.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. The new season of my podcast is back with more probing conversations that get at the heart of the issues that are keeping us up at night. From sex and dating during COVID to the stark reality that the gender gap is a lot wider than we thought, and the true ramifications of misinformation.
865,000 women were forced out of the workforce because we don't have access to childcare, and so women are making the difficult decision. They're choosing their children and their families.
Where do we go from here? Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. New episodes begin November 11th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Cody Koch here. You may know me from Vine, YouTube, or as the co-host of the Tiny Meat Gang podcast. But my brand new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, presented by Trojan Brand Condoms, is out right now. Here's a little preview from my chat with Tim Dillon. What do you seek out in a partner?
I want someone impressed that I'm on this show.
Yeah.
You did a podcast with Cody Ko. That's big. He's got a trillion, gajillion followers on Ding Dong.
On TikTok.
You know, whatever it is.
On Ding Dong.
Zip Zop or whatever the kids are on.
My advice to you right now, go listen to my new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy with the news, Terry Bradshaw's great.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
You can walk out. It's okay. You can. I'll let you just walk in front of the camera. You gotta be quick, though.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you,
Tom
Terry.
Brady is clearly winning the divorce from New England and finding a lot of success in Tampa. The Patriots are only 2-5, while the Bucs are at 6-2. But Brady says he still hopes for good things for his former team.
Oh, sure he does.
I have a lot of relationships with a lot of teammates, so I wish everybody the best all the time. I don't ever wish for anyone to not perform at their best and so forth. I certainly wish our team to play the best. Maybe the only team I don't root for is the team we're playing on that particular Sunday.
Sure, Tom.
He's so nice.
You're so classy.
There's no way. Come on, you're rooting a little bit for him to struggle.
I mean, I think he, on a personal level, I believe him. I think he wants his former teammates, his friends, to do well. But this is a competition, and there's no one more competitive in the NFL than Tom Brady.
Thank
so,
you.
yes, you are enjoying at least a little bit. At the end of the day,
Your
you
struggles.
kick off your Uggs and lay back on your very comfortable bed that you endorse. I can't remember the brand right now. They're not doing as well without you.
That's right. Very human.
That's very human.
I've done it more than once in my
I
life.
do it all the time. So Joe Burrow has played at a high level so far in his rookie year, and Bengals defensive tackle Mike Daniels, who played with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay for 7 seasons, sees a lot of similarities between Burrow and the future Hall of Famer.
He does a lot of things that reminds me of Aaron in terms of his poise and how he conducts himself. He's a rookie strictly because of the amount of time he's been in the NFL, but mentality, his swagger, if you want to say that. I use the word poise. Just the way he goes about it, he conducts business. He's a true leader.
He does remind me of certain things that Aaron Rodgers does, because while Aaron Rodgers can be a bit of a front runner, and he does his discount double check and his celebrations and stuff, and Burrow doesn't do that, he does have a bit of a quiet confidence.
He reminds me today of a better Tony Romo. I think he is a more accurate thrower of the football.
His style of play?
Yeah, because Tony would throw bad picks. Tony was he's still a very good athlete. Tony didn't have a great arm. Tony had an average arm. Burrow's got an average arm. My comp was Romo. Right now, he's better early than Romo. Because, let's be honest with him. He played at Ohio State, LSU. He's a better recruit.
Yeah, I think Burrow has the ability to elevate a team a bit more than Romo did. But to me, it's more of a personality thing to what Mike Daniels is talking about. It's just his confidence that Burrow has, which is a big intangible.
And it's a very respectful confidence. He's not cocky.
It is, but he will go out there. He'll smoke a cigar after the national championship game. He has a little swag to him, but he's not outward with it.
Oh, Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line.
All right, Jason
News.
McIntyre's got his picks of the week, and a Friday we're kind of jammed up, and he's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hey there, it's Mango, host of Part-Time Genius, co-founder of Mental Floss, and like many of you, I'm one of the 21 million people that have picked up gardening in the past 6 months. That's why I'm hosting the brand new podcast, Humans Growing Stuff, brought to you by iHeartMedia and your friends at Miracle Grow. Join me on a green adventure as we talk with experts, friends, and surprise guests, and hear what gardening means to them. Listen to Humans Growing Stuff on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company.
I'm Wheezy, former tech exec, now podcaster, comedy writer, and I make up half of the Horrible Decisions podcast. We combine comedy, raunchiness, all in effort to destigmatize kinks and normalize conversations that are normally taboo, like sex, dating, and relationships. Make sure you tune in this Monday so you can hear conversations like these.
He sets up the phone, he bends over in the... Do y'all want to see it?
No.
We have never suggested cheating, bro. So I'm not going to tell her to cheat on this man. Otherwise, it's great.
Why is future toxic?
Are you serious?
I'm just
asking. I don't want no beef on horrible decisions. Maybe that was a horrible decision to ask that question.
Wait. Join us every Monday on the iHeart app, the #1 place for podcasts. And don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Time to change your wireless provider. Pure Talk USA. Grab your phone, dial pound 250. Say Colin Coward, $20 a month. Okay, we bring him on. His picks of the week. He is wildly accurate, although it's a tough week for odds. I think I beat you last week, McIntyre. Jason McIntyre, Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre via the Coward Global Satellite Network. Joining us live on a Friday. The segment we always do is called Tomorrow's Headlines Today, where we make picks. So this is not an easy week. Now, we're getting there's COVID stuff, there's injury stuff, so you got to really watch the wire. So tomorrow's headlines today, what's it going to be? Bears at Titans.
So Tennessee's coming off a bad loss to the Bengals. I was way wrong on that last week. The headline will be, Titans are Foles gold. Okay. I love Nick Foles going into Tennessee and pulling off the upset. Colin, the big note here is Foles, listen, everybody's out on him. He's not a great quarterback, but if you look 4 of the last 5 games, they've played top 10 defenses. And he struggled. That's what his average quarterback's going to do. Against Carolina, not a great defense, he was able to shred them. They got the win. I think they go to Tennessee, and they pull off a bit of an upset here. Listen, this is a bad Tennessee defense. They're 20th in the league. They can't stop anybody on the outside. They can't get pressure on the quarterback.
True.
I don't know, Colin. I'm not buying this Tennessee team at all. As favorites this year, 1-5 against the spread, and the one cover was a lucky overtime one against Houston.
That's a good point. Tomorrow's headlines today, what's it going to be for? Interesting. Ravens at the Colts.
Yeah, so we nailed the Ravens last week, right? We were all over Pittsburgh. Great segment. The headline will be, dude, where's my Lamar? The Lamar Jackson story is an issue in Baltimore, Colin. Honestly, we were early on this. 4 turnovers last week against Pittsburgh. His completion percentage is down to like 60. I mean, he's making Nate Silver look accurate with his predictions. I mean, Lamar is just spraying the ball all over the place. It's a struggle. And Colin, I just dug this up about an hour ago. So we talked about it on the phone. So teams that Pittsburgh plays are physically beat up. They come out the next week sluggish. Every single Pittsburgh opponent this year has started the next game and been down a touchdown or more at the half. So if you're a real savvy gambler, you want to take a chance on the Colts in the first half of this game. There could be something there. Remember, Baltimore, no Marlon Humphrey. Ronnie Stanley from the offensive line is down. I'm not selling the Ravens. I just think this is not a great spot. You're a big Colts guy with your relationship with Ballard. I think the Colts pull off the upset here. And all the money is with us on the Colts, by the way.
Tomorrow's headlines today, Seahawks at the Buffalo Bills.
One of the few games I feel confident about. The headline will be, Russ for MVP. Lockett in.
Like
yes,
it.
My man Kevin Lockett. Love that. Listen, DK Metcalf and Lockett, they're going to roast this really bad Buffalo defense. This is not your older brother's Buffalo defense winning in the trenches, winning 13-6. Okay, I can't stop anybody. And I think, Colin, last week was their real, rally the troops. We must beat New England. We've got to get a stranglehold on the AFC East. They did that, and I think there's a natural letdown. You had the stat earlier. Russell Wilson going across the country, won his last 10 East Coast games. Russell Wilson is, he's the MVP leader. He's a great quarterback. A good guess, by the way, on the herd. And I like Seattle here. Lock that one up. That's a Seattle win.
All right, tomorrow's headlines today, my favorite game of the week. Dolphins at the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, so we nailed Miami on this show last week. However, the headline will be, not Tua soon to talk playoffs. Colin, again, not want to go overboard here, but if Buffalo does lose and Miami can go to the desert and win and pull off the upset, you're going to see Miami have a real chance in the AFC East. Colin, look at the schedule. Easiest schedule rest of the way in the NFL. Miami Dolphins. I think we're looking at the second biggest upset in Arizona this week. We saw one in politics, and now we have Tua going west. I'm really liking the vibe of this Miami team. Defensively, we talked about it. I think 3 weeks in a row. The cornerbacks are locked down man guys. They did the cover 0 blitz on Jared Goff. They just said, come on, Jared, beat us. We dare you. And Jared Goff could not. Now, Kyler Murray scares me because he's great with his feet, strong running game. I love this Arizona team. They're a playoff team. But I like Miami this weekend.
And the points. All right, finally, tomorrow's headlines today. Breeze Brady, Saints and the Buccaneers.
obviously a big one for NFC NFC playoff implications. The headline will be Brady Brown Bucks breeze on by. I like Tampa here. And Colin, this is weird. A lot of people I respect in the gambling world, they seem to see something with the Saints. I don't see it.
Neither do I.
This is a matchup of the two oldest quarterbacks in the league. Kind of a presidential vibe, right? Going with the theme this week.
Yeah.
Old guys. However, Brady's not playing at an old guy level. 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he had 2 of them in the opener against the Saints. I just think everything screams Tampa in this spot. Second straight road game for the Saints. Okay, weather could be a factor. They're calling for 20, 25-mile-an-hour winds. We know Drew Brees can't go deep downfield. I think the number is 6 completed passes, 20 or more air yards this season. Wow. Like, Justin Herbert could do that. Okay, Justin Herbert did that against the Bucs. But the short stuff is what Brees wants to do, and Tampa's just sitting on those routes. You know, the defensive backs are really strong. They're number 2 defensively in pressure rate, number 2 in blitz percentage. Could be a long night on Sunday for Drew Brees. I'm with you. I think Tampa's the pick here.
Good stuff, Jason McIntyre. Appreciate you stopping by. Mac and I both are doubters on the New Orleans Saints. I love their GM. I love their coach. But I just don't see it. Something's wrong with the locker room. Jason, appreciate you stopping by the show. Check it out, mdriveformen.com. Walgreens, Vitamin Shop, Rite Aid, all have it. Eat right, exercise, only supplement I take. For Joy Taylor and everybody here, have a great weekend. Be safe, stay warm. It's The Herd.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and NBC News senior business correspondent, and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. Times were complicated a year ago, but now, complicated doesn't seem to cover it. Sometimes it feels like we're being asked to play a game where the rules have changed, but we don't know what those new rules are, so I want to try and figure it out together. The new season of my podcast, Modern Rules, is back with more probing conversations because how else can we meet the demands of these crazy times unless we're at the very least trying to get smarter? From sex and dating during COVID to the dangers of misinformation campaigns. We're talking about all of it.
And so what I see coming is, however this ends, that next phase will be a really exciting beginning for sex and relationships. I think it's going to lead to an actual, like a post-COVID sexual revolution.
Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. New episodes begin November 11th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.